used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took some guy's knee and used it for an arrow. That all you got?
Hmm? Yes?
Wait, something's wrong. No, you don't want to go up there. A dragon, it's attacking! Well, I don't know. Not yet. It flew over the town and landed on the old dragon mound. I don't know what it's doing up there, but I'm not waiting around to find out. Come on, hurry. We might be too late. Look at that big... Did you hear that?
Salokunir, Zil Grotova Ursa. Sled.
Whatever you want to know, nothing held back. I'm one of the last members of the Blades. A very long time ago, the Blades were dragon slayers, and we served the Dragonborn, the greatest dragon slayer. For the last 200 years since the last Dragonborn Emperor, the Blades have been searching for a purpose. Now that dragons are coming back, our purpose is clear again. We need to stop them. Not a damn thing. I was just as surprised as you to find that big black dragon here. Really? Where? Interesting. Same dragon. Damn it. We're blundering around in the dark here. We need to figure out who's behind it all. Exactly. Nobody even remembers our name these days. We used to be known across Tamriel as the protectors of the Septim Emperors. Those days are long gone. For the last 200 years, we've been searching for the next Dragonborn to guide and guard, as we are sworn to do. But we never found one, until now. The first thing we need to do is figure out who's behind the dragons. The Thalmor are our best lead. If they aren't involved, they'll know who is. The faction that rules the Aldmeri Dominion. The ones who almost destroyed the Empire during the Great War 30 years back. There's no worse enemy to humankind in Tamriel. The Empire barely survived the last war. The Thalmor don't intend to lose the next one. Nothing solid, yet. But my gut tells me it can't be anybody else. The Empire had captured Ulfric. The war was basically over. Then a dragon attacks, Ulfric escapes, and the war is back on. And now the dragons are attacking everywhere, indiscriminately. Skyrim is weakened. The Empire is weakened. Who else gains from that but the Thalmor? Before the Great War, the Blades helped the Empire against the Thalmor. Our Grand Master saw them as the greatest threat to Tamriel. At the time, that was true. Maybe it still is. So we fought them in the shadows, all across Tamriel. We thought we were more than a match for them. We were wrong. If we could get into the Thalmor embassy, it's the center of their operations in Skyrim. Problem is, that place is locked up tighter than a miser's purse. They could teach me a few things about paranoia. I'm not sure yet. I have a few ideas, but I'll need some time to pull things together. Meet me back in Riverwood. If I'm not back when you get there, wait for me. I shouldn't be long. Keep an eye on the sky. This is only going to get worse.
Never understand why you're so bitter about everything.
I'm bitter because we had lives in Cyrodiil, and we came out here to be paupers.
But we choose our own path now.
And a whole lot of good that's gotten us. Here for work? Get an axe and bring me all the wood you can chop. We got the mill up and running before we found out that the big stand of trees on the hill was sacred. Now we can't cut them, and we can't afford to buy another mill somewhere else. So we scrounge whatever we can from around the tundra. Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't even be here if it weren't for my idiot sister.
Welcome to Times Grove. If you want to do business here, you'll have to deal with me. So it seems the milk drinkers were right. That dragon was nearly the death of us. All we can do now is rebuild. Until next time.
Seen the remnants of the grove? That? Well, that was me. Me and my sister.
If these no...
What? With 3 bears down, the orc did frown, and bid the elf goodbye. For none could know 'twas not for show, and someone had to die. What do you
Next
want?
little milk drinker to ask about
Come
my
to
armor,
gawk
get
at the
Flaming
Knight of
Gnats.
Thorns? Well, here I am, for your viewing pleasure. Where's my dignity? Why, it's in Cyrodiil, where I left it, in the blood-stained robe of the Countess of Shadenhall.
Why you're so bitter about everything.
The same Countess who held me close to her side like a maiden clutches a rose.
But we choose
I
our
am
own
that
path
most
now.
unworthy of fiends, you see. A liar, a betrayer, a turncoat. Yes, and she survived. Such is the depth of my failure. In fact, so pathetic am I that the Countess chose to exile me rather than take my head. One final insult for the Knight of Thorns. To be pitied rather than scorned. Why, certainly. That night I was drinking and whoring as I usually did, after spending the morning pretending to be chaste. Then I donned my helm, and in full armor, I stumbled over to the Countess's chambers, sending the guards on an assignment to oblivion. I pounded the door of her bedchamber, awaking the Countess. "Urgent business," I said. "Is the Count with you?"
Oh, I would.
She told me the Count was in Bruma, discussing some sort of territorial dispute over the Countess's buttocks.
Do that right here.
Then I told her that I had good news and bad news. The good news was she wouldn't be in pain for long. Then I gave her the bad news.
And how much they would pay me for her.
When I was finished, I did what most traitors do. I defiled the corpse and then laughed maniacally before returning to my bedchamber for a nap. Oh, and who is to say what is true and untrue? The Count Steward, that's who. Unless you are him, then it does not matter what you think. Some called me the White Rose, a paladin in pure white armor, said to be painted by a soul that was the very same. I deceived all of Cyrodiil with my feats of valor.
The liberation of Fort Farragut.
Not an easy world
The
out here.
vanquishing of the
Keep at it.
warlocks of Quickwater Cave. All a ruse. An unctuous gambit to earn the trust of the fair Countess. Then, without cause, motive, or provocation, I stabbed her in the chest. Thank the divines, the steward was there to witness the entire deed, and to provide the Countess with the health potion that saved her
An
life.
outsider? No reason
Of
to
course,
stop in kind
he never saw
Keep
my
moving.
face, but there was no mistaking my armor, and no mistaking the petals of blood
My
that stained
goodness,
its chest
well
plate.
met.
So it was obviously I who, jealous over her love of the Count, clumsily stabbed the woman I was sworn to protect. No, that's impossible. Heavy armor is so comfortable to sleep in. At no point would I remove it and allow an enterprising thief to purloin it. Ugh, it matters not. The evidence points to me. There is no other explanation. The Countess chose exile to be my sentence, and so I serve. What are you suggesting? That I am not a traitor? That I am not a drunk? This belly full of mead begs to differ. I am the Knight of Thorns, and to say otherwise is to defy the Countess of Shadenhall. Yet, perhaps that is precisely what a traitor would do. I could embrace my decorated past, and challenge all those who say I am tainted.
We can talk about this
The
later.
mine's always on the verge of collapse.
Perhaps I'll just
Good thing I'm
stay
around to
here
keep it up.
and keep drinking. And build a new legacy as the Knight of 1,000 Beers. Now leave me be. Make it quick. Speak. Why indeed? Why not my ancestral home of Morrowind? The land which the Countess herself assured I would be escorted to. It was no doubt a mistake that I found myself being marched up the face of the Gerald Mountains.
Morrowind
Blades
used
of
to be a
snow
lovely
slicing
place,
against
but
my
you couldn't
brow.
pay me to live there these days.
Pure accident that my brothers and sisters, members of the Order of the Rose, ushered me down an unmarked road and tossed me into a tiny alcove. I remember chipping a tooth when I hit the ground. The dirt was frozen solid, so hard that even the wormwood refused to grow. Yet what it lacked in flora, it made up for in bones. It was an ogre's hunting grounds, and my grave. I laid in that fallow pit for an entire night, waiting for my death, welcoming it. And then, as the hour grew darkest, I thought the snow had finally begun to recede. Only when I looked up, I found it had gathered on the back of the biggest, ugliest ogre I had ever seen. What do you want to hear? That I survived by guile, determination, bravery? Those are not the attributes of a turncoat. I survived because my executioner had second thoughts. Because even the ogres find my existence unpalatable. The dumb brute stared at me for what seemed like hours, before letting out a grunt and chewing on the goat carcass that he dragged to the alcove. If that wasn't humiliating enough, he proceeded to tear out a chunk of flesh and offer it to me like I was a pet. I lacked the courage to refuse. I sank
Papa was
my
going to
teeth
take me
into the
hunting
meat
tomorrow.
like a feral dog,
I don't think you're old enough
and
for
let
that
its
yet.
blood
You can help me
restore
salt the
my
cheese curd.
vitality.
Why can't Froa do it?
Rather than face
Because I'm
my
telling you
death
to.
with honor,
The next morning I used that strength to flee north, crossing the border to Skyrim. Yes, that was an order founded by a previous count, Farwell
Little
Indaris,
killed as a handful.
one of the
And
heroes
Froa
of the
just so
Oblivion
quiet.
Crisis.
He takes after his father.
At one
And she
point,
takes
however,
after him.
one of his descendants,
Well,
who
that's the
disliked
good
the
and the
thorny
bad of it.
sigil, decided to alter it to suit her tastes. She was fond of
You ever
roses.
been troll tipping? That's
So the
a fun
Knights
time.
of the Thorn became the Order of the Roses, fighters chosen as much for their incorruptible honor as their skill in battle. We swore an oath to more than the Count. We swore to uphold the very essence of virtue. We were the Unsullied, the Unspoiled. Every single member arose without a thorn. That is who you speak with. An elf who betrayed not just the Countess, not just her ancestors, but the very ideal of what a knight aspires to be. We did more than obey the laws of gods and men. To fight lust, we swore an oath of celibacy. To fight indolence, we promised to be punctual. To fight passion, we refused to drink. And to fight greed, we often shared our spoils with the townsfolk.
I'm not sure that's a good
We were
joke to
more
tell
than
with
just
women
honorable,
present.
more than mere
But don't
knights.
you get it? She thought
We
he was
were
a troll.
Immaculate.
Oh, I get it. It's funny. It just might upset
Emphasis
your
on the
wife.
word were.
Let her get
The Knight
upset.
of Thorns
She'll be
does
angry
not
no matter
smell
what I
like a
say.
rose.
Might as well enjoy myself.
He is a poisonous vine, and his touch is venom. Redemption? Are you mad? I am the Knight of Thorns. I nearly murdered a countess. Washing that stain is not as simple as killing a few bandits. And if I am not corrupt, that would mean that my brothers and sisters sent an innocent knight to death. That is preposterous. For as you can clearly see, I am a boorish fool who will cover your face in spittle and your tunic in blood. Away with you. Yet what it lacked in flora, it made up for in bones.
I'm not sure that's
you
a
see
good
my
joke.
husband already?
ogre's
I'm
hunting
sorry.
grounds
He can come off a bit
and
rough
my
at times.
grave.
She thought he was a troll.
Magic is nothing
Oh, I
but
get
trouble.
it.
If
It's
you're
fine.
set on it, there's that college in Winterhold, or Ulfric's court wizard. But don't say I
Let
didn't
her
warn
get
you.
upset. She'll be angry no matter what I
Here,
say.
take a look
Might
at
as
this.
well enjoy
Some of the
yourself.
Jarl's men came by and left this bounty letter.
And 100 septum says I could drink you under the
All
table
right, then.
twice.
How can I help you?
Greetings, a fine day to you. Oh, not just good spirits, the best. You could punch me in the throat and I would still be smiling. I would also be a corpse, given how fragile I am. But I would die happy, knowing I helped relieve you of your stress. Actually, I'm not in a good mood, but a normal one. I'm not the type to detour from bliss. My mind is only capable of one type of thinking, the positive kind. Which is why it came as a shock to hear one of my friends accuse me of being, quote, less than courteous to him during a chance meeting in Skyrim. It turns out that he had the displeasure of meeting my doppelganger, though I myself have never been this far north.
If she's not happy, there are plenty of other women.
According to him, this Altmare wore my face as if it were a tunic, and summoned my voice as if it were a spell. Only he failed to use them in the manner for which they were crafted. He was rude, salty, and threatened my friend with bodily harm. In other words, he was strong. He was brave. For a sworn coward such as myself, I was rather intrigued at the prospect of meeting such a fellow. True, but my relation to this mare is more than just appearance and a slightly melodic voice. According to my friend, he is a Thalmor. For you see, I was once a part of that organization myself, before circumstances forced me to resign. Not in any combat capacity, mind you, but purely as a strategic advisor. I may have overstated things earlier, but I didn't lie when I said courage is not my forte.
Better, honey. There has to be more to it than that, though. I wish
Yes,
you were the
he was staying here at the Braidwood Inn. That's why I get nervous when the doors of the inn swing open. None more so than the first time. I thought, how would I introduce myself? Would I even recognize him? How many of us would recognize our own face if we saw it outside the mirror? It was silly in retrospect. With the war, trying to find a Thalmor in Eastmarch is like picking your nose to wipe your bottom. So I decided instead to enjoy the ambiance. I found a table and looked up at the vaulted ceilings. All that space, and the inn still feels cozy. I was curious as to how they light the chandeliers, given how high they are, so I called the innkeeper's wife over to ask her. Yet, before I could say anything, the first words out of Idra's mouth were, "Oh, you're back. Do you want the usual?" I nodded yes, and sheepishly hid my face in my shoulders as she brought a pint of Blackbriar mead and a salmon steak. Positively sublime. It was, quite frankly, the most scrumptious meal I have ever tasted, and the portions were just right. I felt full, but not sluggish. And the mead, something about the honey they use here, it was brilliant. It was then that I realized my doppelganger and I share more than just a face. I wonder if he too has a deep, inexplicable fear of owls. That I do, but I like some things more than others, and I have always preferred salmon over any other fish. No, evidently he came here alone, drank alone, and suffered no company. I wondered if this meant he was sad, lonely, or bitter. Yet, talking with Idra, it seems he was not at all temperamental, save the time he was accosted by my friend. I like to think that he limited his interaction with the locals because he knew war was on the horizon. He understood how much more difficult the fighting would become when your friends are on the other side. You know, we Aldmere have selectively bred for centuries, in order to maintain a resemblance to our ancestors. In this regard, it is quite accurate to say that many of us do look alike. I am beginning to wonder, however, if there is a point to any of it. What matters is not that we look like the Aldmere, but that we act like them. That is the true bond that links me to my doppelganger. Do you mean separated at birth, like in the mirror? That would be something. Berdier-Weyans is my favorite author, after all. I have always wanted a seventh brother. No offense to the six I already have. They are all wonderful. However, lately, I have been entertaining another theory. What if we weren't separated by birth, but by choice? What if we're the same person, having led different lives? Two Altmere of identical physical makeup, parting ways at one of life's many forks. The result is two vastly different personas, Skyrim having shaped him as much as the Somerset Isles have shaped me. Yes, if you think about it, we all start from the same place, a womb. From birth, life is nothing but a series of forks. We may choose the path of the warrior, the farmer, or the priest. We may choose to live in a village or in the shadow of a great keep. We can choose to spend our nights in the comforting arms of our beloved, or behind the hot, sweaty doors of a brothel. What choices did my counterpart make, and not make? Did he come to Skyrim for war, for greed, or for love? Not a regret, but curiosity. It was decades ago that I received that promotion to serve in Skyrim as an emissary to the High King. I rushed home to my wife that night, eager to tell her the big news. She said she had the same. I told her to go first. She always did. Had I went first, maybe I wouldn't own a spice shop in the Shimmerine, or know the names of every passerby who comes to greet me on Sunday morning. I wouldn't have those days on the beach with my son, wishing I could bottle up his laughter as if there were nothing more precious in the world. It all changed when my wife went first, when she brought my hand to her stomach and I felt it kick. At that moment, I forgot what I had come home to say. I didn't want him to grow up around war, so I left the Thalmor to start a spice business. It wasn't easy with the embargoes imposed by Hammerfell. The choice I made left me with little money, long days, and sleepless nights. And yet I have never felt so wealthy. That's a good question. One that I've wrestled with since I boarded that ship to Windhelm. When I was a child, I dreamt of becoming a Justicar. Like most Outmere children, I'd heard the tales of their heroism during the Oblivion Crisis. How Erendil of Cloudrest vanquished 100 Daedra in as many hours, and the tale of the Golden Seven, who uncovered the plot by the traitor Ryandor. My skills in combat, however, relegated me to a life dreaming of battle as opposed to participating in them. Yet, my passion for the subject was such that I sought other avenues. I trained to become a master tactician, be the playwright instead of the actor. Only life intervened. I knew I couldn't raise my son in a foreign land, and I could never abandon him the way my father abandoned me. Still, I can't help but wonder how my life would be different had I been free to pursue my dream. In truth, stranger, I have not come here to validate my own choice. I have come here to validate his. I'd start by asking him about his personal history, see where our paths diverged. If our resemblance is truly as uncanny as my friend proposed, then I'm sure he will be as eager to hear about my life as well. I confess I hadn't thought that far. I can't envision a scenario where he's not at the very least curious. And given his associations, I imagine he would welcome any friendly face, not to mention a familiar one. They are an eclectic bunch, and excellent company. I know I should be continuing my search in solitude, but I can't seem to pull myself away. Farewell. Oh, not farewell, but till we meet again.